ask for an aye vote, and I yield my time to Senator Cabaldon.
Senator Cabaldon, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill, this package of bills has been among the three most heavily reported bills in California and in the country. The notion that...
Can you address the presiding officer, please?
Oh, for a point?
Can you address the presiding officer, please?
Oh, I usually stand there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam President. This package of bills has been among the most heavily reported. It's widely known across the state of California that this effort is underway, which is odd because when I talk to my own constituents and I mention the word redistricting, a glazed look goes over their eye. Very few Californians spend their time or their worries or their concerns or their hopes thinking about redistricting. They are thinking about food on the table and rent and public safety and their ability to walk free on the streets of this state. But I hear about it constantly in my own district. And I hear about it in places that you might not expect. And it reminds me of one of my favorite parts of the year, and I know I share this with many of my colleagues from both parties, Little League opening day. The parade goes down the neighborhood on Meadow Road, turns the corner. We all end up at Memorial Park for the first day of the Little League season. And once the ceremony is over, the certificates have been presented, then the teams go onto the field. And you sit, for me as a mayor and now as a senator, you sit with the parents ready to watch the game. And the first inning comes up and the other team keeps striking out. And the second inning, they've struck out every time. When they pitch, sometimes they intentionally hit our players and you're starting to get a little worried. By the fifth inning, though, something weird happens. You see that on their side of on the other team's players, the first base is now being taken over by one of the dads. One of the moms is subbed in at second base. Another mom's at shortstop. Another dad is at third base and another at catcher. And you look at the field, you say, this is not fair. This is Little League. Where are the kids at? You can't just sub in 5 adults to play a Little League game. That's not fair. It's also it's not safe. What you've created is a Little League I would never be a part of. We don't sit in the stands in that moment and argue with each other. You know what I'm going to do about this? I'm going to go to the next Little League board meeting in 2 months to complain because what we really need is a policy that prevents this from happening. You don't pen a harshly worded letter to the other team. You stand up. You do something. In that moment, most likely, what most Americans would do, we're sending 5 of our parents out there. We're pulling our kids off the field. We are taking action to assure that that cheating, that endangerment does not happen. If when the Olympics are at the Rose Bowl here in California, the Rose Bowl in California, and the soccer team come on the field and we're playing against Russia, and they sub in 5 people, 5 additional players onto their team, you can be damn right we'll be calling for our team to be doing the same. We won't be waiting to file a complaint after the game is over that we lost because someone cheated right in front of our eyes, right in broad daylight. That's why Californians every day, more and more Californians are like, I don't know that much about redistricting, but this ain't right. This cannot happen, and California cannot stand for it. That's what this is all about. And so what's different here is it's not a trophy that's on the line. What is on the line is everything that we've heard described by the pro tem and others on this floor. The HR 1 cuts, the massive cuts that will hit California, but many of them that won't take place until after the congressional election. So we have a shot to stop them from happening. What's on the line is our freedom on the street and the terrorism that's happening with ICE, the attacks on UCLA, on our very elections, on reproductive freedom. Across the board, we have a chance to do something about it. Because right now, everyone at the Little League game is always asking me, what can I do as an American? What can I do to prevent the erasure of our democracy, the decline of our institutions and our protections? Now, and so we have to both fix the rules. We do have to go to that Little League meeting, and that's exactly what AC 8 does. Its first provision is California calls upon the Congress of the United States to place a constitutional amendment before all of the states for a national independent redistricting system. That is number 1 in ACA 8. And so we are doing that. And we must also get on the field and protect our kids and our families and our communities. Now, it's ironic because we stand here today, 99 years after the very first redistricting initiative went on the ballot here in California. Redistricting is one of the most contested ballot initiatives over and over and over again that Californians typically face. And we've been doing it now for nearly for a century. And that ballot measure, which created an independent citizens commission to redistricting, was rejected almost 2-1. When it was proposed again a decade and a half later, it was rejected by 10 points. It was rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected. In the 1980s, it was rejected 4 times. 4 times. In the 2000s, it was rejected right before it barely passed. And so when we talk about the voters have enshrined this in the Constitution as something that can never change, the voters have been changing their minds about redistricting almost since the admission of this state into the Union. And in fact, in 2008, when the voters passed the initiative that the senator from Fair Oaks noted, there were 2 other ballot measures on that 2008 ballot that are noteworthy here. One was the voters' overwhelming support for high-speed rail, which we've heard previously on this floor, senators from the other side of the aisle, Republican senators saying we should toss that out. We should throw that one out. But this one that passed by less is somehow divinely inspired and can never be changed by the voters themselves. The second measure that was on that ballot was Proposition 8, the infamous Proposition 8, which said that we were amending the Constitution to prevent folks from marrying the person that they loved, marriage equality. That's what happened in 2008, by a larger margin than this commission. And yet, last year, the voters of California overwhelmingly reversed that decision. Democracy is in ever-changing progress. It's a book that we are writing together. And the only ones that can tell us to respect the will of the voters are the voters. And the only way we can know what their will is in this critical time for the preservation of our democracy is by passing this Constitution to let the voters decide. I want to speak briefly to the notion of this mid-decade redistricting that we've heard about repeatedly this morning as well, and the outrage over the idea that we might do redistricting in the middle of the decade, as though this were the first time this idea has been considered. Republicans and their agents submitted mid-decade redistricting initiatives nearly every single year in the 1980s, and then again in the 90s and in the 2000s. The outrage, the hypocritical outrage here is palpable. The only folks who proposed mid-decade redistricting before today have been the Republicans of California. So the outrage that this is unconstitutional, how can it be unconstitutional to ask the voters of California if they choose to, if they decide to, if they elect to amend the Constitution to accomplish this? And also, Texas did not consider the 2020 census data or any updates. In fact, the chairman of the Elections Committee in Texas said, oh, well, I don't have that census data. I haven't looked at it. This process, on the other hand, has examined every available data source. That census from 2020 and all the data since, all of the testimony in relevant areas in California where the lines are changing to look to see what did regular people say about their communities of interest to the Redistricting Commission. And then finally, the notion that this is expensive. Another example of fake outrage, because we heard no outrage about the cost, the annual petitions to the Secretary of State for a recall of the governor or someone else. Every single year, we've had these petitions submitted with zero, dead silence about the cost of that election, which is exactly the same as the cost as this. So please spare me the sanctimony about the cost of the election when you've remained silent every single time that another recall election has been proposed. Now, I also represent Sonoma County, just as a response to the senator from Santa Clarita, and many other communities that have constantly been shifted from district to district over time. And Sonoma County will be doing just fine under this map. I can speak to my constituents. We can handle having 3 members of Congress. It's a feature, not a bug. But let's not think that today's redistricting map, it comes from a commission that did outstanding work, but it's not from some divine text, right? Let's go up to one of the closest districts from here. Maybe stop in Citrus Heights at the at the Jolly Cone. And just head up the freeway. Like you've now met about 5% of the voters in this congressional district. Head up the Highway 50 a little bit. You'll end up in Folsom, maybe stop at the auto malls or maybe the Old Town. Then head over to Roseville and to Rockland and Placer County. You've now met half the voters, over half the voters of this district. But you got to keep on going, because in that district, you got to keep driving on Highway 80 up all the way to almost Mount Lassen. And then you have to turn around, get back on the freeway, get back on 12 freeways in order to get to Death Valley. Death Valley. So please don't tell me about splitting Lodi, which is a fan community of mine just nearby here, in 3, when the current map places hundreds of thousands of people in Sacramento County, steps away from this building, in the same congressional district as Death Valley itself. And so these maps represent a step forward for representation. They respect communities of interest. They fully comply with the Voting Rights Act. But most importantly, they meet the moment of we are here because of Trump, and we're here because of President Trump, and we're here because of what Texas is doing, seeking to cheat and steal the game. We are doing this not in response to Texas alone, but to parry Texas, to neutralize and to nullify their illegal actions to cheat this congressional election and undo the will of the voters in 2026. California, we are the 4th largest economy. We are the most populous state in the country. It is our duty to America to be the last line of defense. And I ask for an aye vote on AC8. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Valladares, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. And I do believe I have amendments at the desk.
Secretary, please read the amendments.
Amendments by Senator Valladares, set 1.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Members, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I rise to present important amendments to ACA 8. If this body insists on moving forward with stripping power away from the voter-approved Redistricting Commission, then the very least that we can do is we owe Californians meaningful safeguards against corruption. This amendment simply provides that any legislator who votes yes on ACA 8 will be prohibited from running for elected office for 10 years. That is not a radical idea. It merely extends to members of this legislature the same 10-year moratorium that already applies to the citizen volunteers who serve on the Independent Redistricting Commission. The people of California demanded ironclad guarantees that those who draw district lines never place personal ambition above the voters. If this is good enough for the citizens who volunteer their time, it should be good enough for politicians seeking to reclaim power. Let's be clear. You cannot demand that ordinary citizens give up the right to run for office for a decade and then exempt politicians from the same rule. That would be hypocrisy. If you truly believe that ACA 8 is about fairness, if you truly believe that this isn't about creating career opportunities for members of this body or those who influence these maps, then you should have no problem supporting this amendment. Because if everything is above board here, then what do you have to object to? 60% of Californians voted to give redistricting power to an independent commission because they were tired of tortured lines drawn to serve those in power. The current process is transparent, it's independent, and it's accountable to the people. They said clearly, we do not want politicians drawing their own lines. Today, this body risks turning its back on that mandate. But if we're going to press forward, then we must at least bind ourselves to the same ethical standards that we demand of our citizens. This amendment is a test of whether or not this body values integrity over expediency, fairness over partisanship, and accountability over ambition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Senator Gonzalez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam President and members. Again, ACA 8 is very clear. It's in response to what colleagues in Texas are doing, and this is absolutely egregious. I'm wondering where the outcry is against the Texas officials that are continuously disenfranchising voters in Texas. And it also requests...
Excuse me. Point of order.
If the majority leader could please speak to the germaneness of the amendments.
Your point is well taken. Can you please limit your comments to the amendments that we are hearing at this moment?
Yes, and I am absolutely going to do that. And so ACA 8 also represents a reasonable and rational response to this overreach. And the amendments specifically, what I will say is I would love an outcry for the fact that there is going to be, if we're going to talk about corruption and transparency, why aren't we talking about the fact that President Trump has already said he wanted to run for a third term, and become the next king of the United States of America? So I will ask that.
Excuse me, just a moment. What is your point of order?
The speaker is not addressing the amendments directly before us in this body. I believe the amendments have nothing written about the President of the United States. So
Thank you. Just a moment, please.
Yeah.
Senator Gonzalez, the amendments that we have before us are dealing with whether or not the members of the legislature will be able to run as a candidate for 10 years. Your comments must stick to the amendments that we are voting on or that have been presenting before us. Thank you.
I think the floor is
Senator Valladares, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Again, to clarify, this is a really simple amendment. It is 3 lines. This is about fairness. This is about holding ourselves, elected members of a legislature, to the same standards that we require of our Citizen Redistricting Commission. Again, if this ACA is to really be about fairness, then you should have no problem supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Senator Gonzalez, you are recognized.
Madam President, I ask that we lay the amendments on the table, asking for an aye vote.
Senator Gonzalez has requested that we lay the amendments on the table. This is not debatable. Senator Gonzalez is asking for an aye vote. Senator Valladares is asking for a no vote. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Alvarado Gil. Archuleta. Aye. Adeguin. Aye. Ashby. Aye. Becker. Aye. Blakespear. Aye. Cabaldon. Aye. Caballero. Aye. Cervantes. Aye. Choi. No. Cortezi. Aye. Daly. No. Durazo. Aye. Gonzalez. Aye. Grayson. Aye. Grove. No. Hurtado. Aye. Jones. No. Laird. Aye. Limon. Aye. McGuire. Aye. McNerney. Aye. Menjivar. Aye. Nilo. No. Ochoa Bog. No. Padilla. Aye. Perez. Aye. Reyes. Aye. Richardson. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Ciarto. No. Smallwood Cuevas. Aye. Stern. Aye. Strickland. No. Umberg. Aye. Valladares. No. Wahab. Aye. Weber Pearson. Aye. Wiener. Aye.
Ayes 30, noes 9. The amendments are laid at the table. We will continue our debate. Senator Wiener, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, this is really about California punching back against Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been punching down at everyone for a long time, punching down at states, punching down at trans kids, punching down at immigrants. We are punching back to protect our democracy against this fascism. This is about California checking Donald Trump. And I wanted to say with respect to Trump, there was some reference to corruption before. I hope if people are going to talk about corruption, we can talk about the corruption in the White House, that Donald Trump is accepting all sorts of bribes, these scam meme coins that people use to funnel cash to him, the plane that he received from the Qatari government, the bribe that he received from Paramount to settle that bogus defamation lawsuit. So let's talk about that corruption. And we're seeing corruption here as well in terms of Donald Trump trying to seize control of our government in perpetuity. And that's what's happening in Texas and what we are responding to. So when I say that California is checking Donald Trump, it's because not that many institutions are actually stepping up to check this aspiring dictator. The Republicans in Congress are not checking him. They just give him whatever the heck he asks for. The Republicans in Congress voted to kick their own constituents off of health care and food assistance and to close hospitals in their own district at the request of Donald Trump. The Supreme Court is not checking him. The Supreme Court basically rubber stamps whatever the heck Donald Trump wants to do, whether it's illegally deport immigrants or tear down the government illegally. The Supreme Court just rubber stamps it. It's not red states because Donald Trump called up the governor of Texas and said, hey, I want 5 more seats in Congress. Can you do a scam redistricting? And instead of saying, you know what, Mr. President, like mind your own business, we're going to handle our own stuff here in Texas, the governor of Texas just said, yes, sir. Whatever you want, sir. We'll do whatever you need, sir. Universities aren't doing it. They're caving in one after the other, adopting his MAGA policies. Most recently, even Harvard, which it was so depressing. Harvard was standing up, and then even Harvard caved in. It's not the media. Some media are standing up, like the AP, which is still banned from a lot of things because it refuses to say the Gulf of America. But other media are even paying bribes to this president. So California is not going to do that. We are going to check this fascist's overreaches. We're going to check him. We're not going to back down. We are the 4th largest economy in the world. We are the largest state by far. We have the wherewithal to be able to fight back and punch back against this despicable human being who is trying to tear down so much of what is good in this country. And Trump knows that we have the ability to punch back and that we will punch back. And that's why he is targeting California so severely, why he is demanding $1 billion in extortion from UCLA. Otherwise, he'll kill off Alzheimer's and cancer research at UCLA. He's doing it by targeting, especially Southern California, with these horrific immigration raids, grabbing people from their front yards and from bus stops and from work sites and disappearing them.
Just a moment.
Point of order.
Just a moment. What is your point of order?
I deeply respect my colleague from San Francisco and his passion about a lot of different issues throughout the state of California, but I would encourage this body to talk about the bill that's before us. And I gave a lot of leeway before my point of order, but it seems like it's going into a lot of different issues. And I would hope
Thank you so
that
much, Senator Strickland. You've stated your
thank
point of order. Just a moment.
Madam President, it's directly relevant.
Thank you so much for waiting. We have allowed during this debate for people to give outside context on both sides to their arguments for whether or not they support or oppose the measure that is before us, and therefore your point is not well taken. Senator Weiner, you may continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. In addition to targeting UCLA, in addition to these horrific fascist secret police immigration raids, he is directly targeting California with his unconstitutional plan to upend the census and to do a new scam census so that he can move even more seats out of California and other states that don't support his fascism. So on so many levels, he is targeting California, and he is targeting so much that is good about this country, and California is not going to take it sitting down. We are going to punch back, and that's what we are doing today. I wanted to say one final thing. I supported the creation of the Independent Redistricting Commission. I have been an admirer of the work of this commission. And I understand that there are some folks, people I know and respect, who want us to keep the Independent Redistricting Commission, and we are keeping it. But we also have to be clear that this is about so much more than whether we are taking a particular approach to redistricting. That all becomes irrelevant if we lose our democracy because we have a fascist who freezes himself in power and continues to tear down people's access to health care and destroy civil rights for so many communities and destroy our ability to engage in scientific research.
Senator Weiner, let's
Yes.
go back to the bill before us.
Yes. And so it is about the bill, it's about the Independent Redistricting Commission. And so as much as we all want to have the best redistricting possible, this is the right approach right now in response to what Texas is doing and what this president is trying to do to our country. And I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Senator Reyes, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. My mother has often told me, and I'll say it in Spanish, si es injusto, es incorrecto. Y si es incorrecto, es tu responsabilidad de corregirlo. No porque te afecta a ti, porque le afecta a la sociedad. My mother says if it is unjust, it is incorrect. And if it is incorrect, it is your responsibility to correct it. Not because it affects you, but because it affects others and because it affects society. The actions of this administration have terrorized our communities. Sometimes it is direct, and sometimes it is not only direct in our districts, but also throughout California. In San Bernardino County alone, 155,000 children rely on SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Many of them are going to lose this. That is an injustice. We are seeing armed, masked men stopping and kidnapping people right off the street, putting them in unmarked cars and sending them to unknown countries. Just last week, we had a young man who was stopped by these masked armed men. He wouldn't roll down his window. He asked them to identify themselves, asked for a warrant. They could not provide anything. They broke his windows. He immediately fled. They fired at his vehicle. And on his way home, he called 911 and asked San Bernardino PD to please come and help. We've lost due process, which is a fundamental right of Americans. We have lost it under this administration. The fear in our countries is unacceptable, especially for our children who are no longer going to school. We have superintendents now concerned in sending the the teachers out to welcome the students, to make sure the students feel that they are protected in their schools. This Trump big, ugly bill has taken $1 trillion that was for Medicaid. In every one of our counties, every one of our districts, our people, our constituents are losing their benefits. And who benefited under that big, ugly bill? Billionaires. They can write off their jets now under this bill, in addition to so many other things. Because of the president's